4. Social justice and the marginalized. Marginalized groups are those groups in the society which suffered social and economic backwardness due to several reasons and remained ignored in the society. They include scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, other backward classes and minorities. We cannot call our polity democratic unless there is social and economic equality. In our traditional society, there are several customs and practices that have been passed on through the ages which are not conducive to social equality. The feeling of casteism and untouchability has marginalized a section of people and created social inequalities. The preamble of our Constitution declares that it aims to bring about justice in the social, economic and political sphere and hopes to achieve equality of status and equal opportunities to all. If this is fulfilled, it would contribute to the dignity of individual and promote unity in the country. If equality is to be achieved, these marginalized people have to be brought up to the same level as the rest of the society. Our constitution makers were aware of this problem and proposed some temporary and some permanent measures for their upliftment. Some provisions aim to improve the conditions of scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and other backward classes. Other provisions protect a category of people who are in minority in terms of numbers. They need to be protected so that the majority does not oppress them. Our constitution also protects women, children and other socially and educationally backward classes of people. Scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. Previously called depressed classes by the British, they are the Indian population grouping that are explicitly recognized by Indian Constitution. As per 2001 census, SCs and STs together comprise over 24% of India's population, with scheduled castes at over 16% and scheduled tribes over 8%. The proportion of scheduled castes and scheduled tribes in the population of India has steadily risen since our independence in 1947. History. From the 1850s, these communities were loosely referred to as the depressed classes. The early part of the 20th century saw a flurry of activity in the British Raj to assess the feasibility of responsible self-government for India. One of the hotly contested issues in the proposed reforms was the topic of reservation of seats for the depressed classes in provincial and central legislatures. In 1935, the British passed the Government of India Act 1935, and reservation of seats for the depressed classes was incorporated in its structure. The Act brought the term scheduled castes into use and defined the group as including such castes, races or tribes which appear to His Majesty in Council to correspond to classes of persons formerly known as the depressed classes. This discretionary definition was clarified in the Government of India Scheduled Castes Order 1936, which contained a list or schedule of castes throughout the British-administered provinces. After independence, the Constituent Assembly continued the prevailing definition of scheduled castes and tribes and gave the President of India and governors of states responsibility to compile a full listing of castes and tribes and also the power to edit it later as required. There is no specific definition of scheduled castes and tribes. Castes which were formerly treated as untouchables in the society are called scheduled castes. According to 2001 census, the scheduled castes population was registered as 166.64 million. Similarly, scheduled tribes represent communities which are economically backward and inhabiting the remote hilly and thickly forested areas. According to 2001 census, they comprise 84.33 million population. Indian society has traditionally been divided into castes on the basis of occupation. A group of people who did not belong to this caste hierarchy lived outside the villages in the past. As they did menial jobs, they were considered outcasts and began to be called untouchables. Over the years, they were denied all opportunities to lead a dignified life. Some of the social reformers like Jyotiba Phule, Sri Narayana Guru and Mahatma Gandhi worked hard to fight against this evil practice of untouchability. Although scheduled castes and minorities lived in villages and towns along with other people, scheduled tribes lived in hilly areas and forests of states like Odisha, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Bihar, Gujarat, and other northeastern states. What sets them apart from the rest is the fact that they live in isolation and follow a very distinct culture from others. A list of tribes was drawn out by respective state governments which collectively came to be known as scheduled tribes. The constitution laid down 15% vacancy to government-aided educational institutes and for jobs in the government or public sector as reserved quota for a period of 5 years, after which the situation was to be reviewed. This period was routinely extended by succeeding governments. Moreover, the Mandal Commission report identified 3,743 backward classes or castes which are poverty-ridden but are not untouchables. They are mostly engaged in agriculture, animal husbandry and handicraft. They constitute other backward classes and thus get 27% reservation in public services. The Constitution has made no reference to other backward castes as such. Trivia. In the original Constitution, Article 338 provided for a special officer for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes to have responsibility of monitoring the effective implementation of various safeguards for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes.